Anthony Grassi here for College.town at the 2025 NACDA Convention. Happy to sit down with the Northwest Conference, Commissioner Shana Levine, Assistant Commissioner Abby Jarvis. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Yep.
So how would we describe the state of the Northwest Conference to start?
The state of the Northwest Conference. I'm actually going to turn this over to Abby to start with because she's been there the longest at this point, to kind of give a sense of maybe where we've come from a bit and where you see us now, if that works.
Yeah, Abby, no
absolutely.
pressure.
I would say we're in a really great rebuilding phase right now. We've spent a lot of time kind of redoing Constitution, redoing mission and values, and really kind of setting the precedent for where we'd like to head in the future, which I think has been a really great experience to be a part of. Certainly a lot of transition within our conference, but I think putting us on the best stage to become kind of a national powerhouse in athletics and academics.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I think I'm finishing up the first year of a full-time commissioner role, and then was involved last year as well from a consulting space, but doing the consulting work, and then now it's allowed us to look at our processes and say which ones do we want to keep, which ones maybe do we need to modify, and how do we move forward. And we have a group of presidents and ADs that are willing to make change, which taking advantage of that has been, I think, fun and helpful, and one of the reasons, in addition to Abby, that I was interested in the position.
What have been the areas that have been most important for you to rebuild through your first full year? And Abby, maybe you can start with this as the one who has the understanding of where it was, how it was being built, and maybe where it's also going.
I think the communication system, as far as processes go, has been kind of the biggest hurdle for us in rebuilding things. Making sure that our coaches, all of our faculty and athletic administrators are kind of aware of the steps along the way, making sure that everyone has all of the information to make really informed decisions in our conference has been kind of the biggest challenge for us, but I would say also the most impactful.
Yeah, I think some of our big initial projects was identifying a new mission and value statements, so having kind of that North Star of knowing what's important to the conference, and then that can filter down to the decisions we make, rather than each coaching group kind of choosing their own direction and that ebbing and flowing depending on who's in the room. That can be difficult for ADs to manage. It's hard for us to then answer questions about why we're doing things. So we really want to be able to have those answers. So starting with the mission and values was huge. And we are, as Abby noted, updating the Constitution and governance process. So it's more inclusive and more nimble at the same time, getting feedback from those groups, but also then empowering our ADs to make decisions so we can stick and move and actually kind of get some things done.
Does the order and I guess the structure through which decisions are made, how has that change been? Because you mentioned that the ADs are now the ones making the decision. That implies that was not the case previously. So changing the power dynamic within the conference, I imagine, is a interesting thing to work through.
It is an interesting thing to work through. I think we're also in a place now in higher ed generally where presidents understand that you have to be able to be nimble and make decisions, right? We don't have a year to sit and go through all the processes. We want to get feedback from those individuals, but we can do that in a more proactive, nimble way. I mean, Zoom is a thing. You guys are watching this on video. 10 years ago, 15 years ago when the Constitution was written, that wasn't a thing. So everyone was having to meet in person and go through, it just doesn't make sense in today's time and technology. So I would actually say it was better received than we maybe initially thought it would be. And the ADs are the professionals and the practitioners. They're the ones that the presidents are paying to make these tough choices and keep them informed. So we're empowering them to do that, but while also including the coaches, our support staff, faculty athletic reps, and then presenting that to the presidents to say, here's where we are. Are you comfortable with the direction?
Abby, you mentioned that the communication being so important in that. I imagine educating all of the coaches on all of the campuses is a challenge, as maybe they may have been the ones leading certain initiatives to change within the conference. How have you guys gone about doing so, and maybe some pushback that's come from those individuals and educating them on why this is the right move for the conference going forward?
Yeah, I think fortunately, Shane and I both approach something as just because we've been doing something in the past doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best option moving forward. And our coaches have been relatively receptive to that, of them saying, well, these are the meetings that we've had in the past, and us kind of pushing, here's what we think is a better way to do this moving forward. And obviously you're going to have some pushback from certain groups of, we're adding more meetings, we're taking away meetings, and that's not necessarily the best. But I think us being willing to push and say, why do you think that that is the best model of communication and the best model for feedback? And I think just asking those questions and giving them the opportunity to speak on that has kind of forced a little bit of reflection on why are we doing the things that we're doing and how can we keep improving our processes.
You both mentioned the ability to be nimble through this whole process, and as you guys are moving forward, what does the feedback loop look like with each respective constituency?
So we generally have proposals. One, we've put timelines on when the sports are providing proposals. So it's off season, they have a work meeting, and then they have a preseason meeting to check in, make sure everyone's on the same page. So during their work meeting, that's when their proposals come up. So we're trying to make it less reactionary to what just happened a week ago and more kind of like, let's sit with it, let's think, let's be proactive. So we get all of the spring sport proposals that show up in the fall. Those then are presented to our sports information, our athletic trainers, SWAs, FARs, facility group. I'm probably forgetting someone in this list of individuals. They say whether they support or oppose it, which is a feedback loop that wasn't happening before. So they were kind of finding out after the fact if something impacted them. Then those positions are then all presented to our ADs to take a position on, a final position, which then goes to the presidents. So we've just started it. So one of the other things that I think we've said to the coaches is like, this is how we envision it, and we want to make sure that everyone that's involved has a say, and maybe they pose questions back to the coaches, think of something we haven't thought of, so that when the ADs get the information, they're empowered to make a decision rather than having to ask the questions at those times. And we've also said, in a year or two, we may say, oh, this is working, but this isn't, so let's change it, right? Like, this doesn't mean that we have the end-all, be-all answer, but like, let's give it a shot, and if it's not working, then we'll pivot again, right? So hopefully that helps a little bit too. We're looking for their feedback and things. We've done a good number of surveys. We'll see.
Shana, have anything out there? So we mentioned the new mission, the new values for the conference. Why? Obviously, you're setting the foundation, but what does that mean going forward to set kind of the vision for the conference moving forward?
Yeah, for me, it's important to have the mission and our values around academic centrality, unity, and competitive excellence to then really allow all of our decisions and actions to flow out of that. This tells us where we should be spending our dollars, where should we be spending our time, what's important to our conference, especially in this time of uncertainty, right? This idea of unity and really coming together, ensuring that individuals that are in the Northwest Conference and the schools are bought in, want to be part, and are working together. It's a really collaborative group, which I like. Some of that is probably because of our geographic isolation in D3. So we are forced to work together, play against each other, and be collaborative in that space. So in that world, that really will help us then develop a championships philosophy. Abby has been amazing at leading a subcommittee in an awards philosophy, right? Like, what does it mean to be first team, second team, third team in the Northwest Conference? We were all over the place before. That doesn't feel great if you're an athlete, right? Like, we want to know, what is the goal? Is it to honor the best of the best or to honor as many as possible? That would look really different. So they've come up with a great awards philosophy. That's been approved, and now all the sports have that and are kind of setting up what their teams would look like under that shared philosophy. And a lot of that is all trickle down from the mission and values work that we've done.
Abby, on the unity is not maybe the most common value that you hear within a athletic department or a conference office. Why was that critical now?
I think especially as we look at, kind of as Shana mentioned, our geographic isolation and the fact that we do really rely heavily on each other. It is not one school against another all the time in our conference. It truly is a team of athletic directors and schools that are working together, recognizing that maybe every situation doesn't put everyone in the absolute best position, but it's bettering our conference as a whole and kind of showing where that value is important. And kind of, rather than making one team to the national tournament, looking at how we can put our conference on the best stage moving forward into kind of national play.
Absolutely. And not knowing the future of athletics, like, we all need each other. And so that's really important in my mind. In addition, something that I think is really unique about the Northwest, in addition to the amazing landscapes and views and diversity in that space, no humidity, very different than here in Orlando. We have the desert, the lush, like all of the different areas, but we also have that diversity with our schools. We always say, if you're interested in playing Division III athletics in the Northwest, there is a school within the conference that fits you, whether it's rural or more urban, more religious-based, we offer so many different pieces, those that are more in the health sciences and have a grad school track. Those are very traditional liberal arts. All of that is represented in our conference, which is distinctive than maybe some conferences where, they're aligning around similarities of institution. And we can say, hey, come to the Northwest. There'll be a place here where you'll fit. And so as a result, that's where kind of that unity piece also ties in. We really need to be intentional because of our diverse institutions of making sure everything that we're doing speaks to our institutions that are coming at things from different angles.
Shana, you mentioned the uncertainty around athletics.
Yep.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but the geographic isolation of the Northwest, is that a strength or a threat given the uncertainty that exists right now?
I would say, for me, I think it's a strength in my role. I mean, there's the good and the bad, right? The good is there aren't other Division III conferences in that space. So if someone gets upset or is unhappy with the direction, there's not a place for them just to say, like, I'm going to take my ball and go elsewhere. That kind of goes back to that collegiality and unity piece. The downside is there aren't other D3 schools to go out and play against in the non-conference or to go add to the conference, right? So as a result, we also, as Abby noted, you've got to make decisions that work for everyone. If you make decisions that are going to make it really hard for two of our schools that aren't near everyone else, to the extent that it makes it not feasible for them to compete, like, you're not helping yourself, right? So I think that's a part where recognizing that the conference is kind of, we need to stick together is a strength versus having the ability to just get angry and go somewhere else. That being said, as we just said, it's also a risk because we don't have other D3 schools, one, to play, so it's expensive, or to go get is, we have 9 members. Would 10 be easier in a schedule? Yeah, it would be easier, but we're at 9, so that's where we are.
You guys recently signed a conference-wide deal with Teamworks as of yesterday, the day before, as we sit here right now. Why, I can put it this way, Abby, how beneficial was it to have the entire conference on board, to use all of the membership's mass to help the Northwest Conference with this partnership?
Yeah, I mean, we had some schools that were already using Teamworks, and they will speak very, very highly of the processes on campus that they've been able to develop. But I think from our standpoint, we have identified a lot of systems that Teamworks can assist us with as far as conference paperwork and communication amongst our schools. And that was the biggest takeaway for us doing kind of a conference deal with Teamworks, was just streamlining a lot of processes on our end, standardizing a lot of kind of how paperwork is passed around, how we kind of share information, which I think will be really, really beneficial for us moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It also, you get a conference discount, which makes it a little cheaper for those schools, which none of the schools were upset about that. So that's always helpful too.
Shane, are there other areas where, from the conference office perspective, you thought of how can we get all of our members on the same page to help with whatever problem or solution may exist?
I would say that's a lot of what we're doing currently, is just thinking, like, how can we help, or doing different pieces. One of the things that actually just passed was the ability, it's not a requirement, but the ability to do sideline technology and replay for football. And we're doing it in basketball as well, as kind of a starting point in the conference. And this idea of, okay, let's all do research and go with the same company. So one, it makes it seamless when you're doing home and away games. And then can we also get a benefit of, purchasing as a group as opposed to individually. So I think finding and continuing to identify those pieces are things that we're on the lookout for. I don't know if we've spent as much time doing that because we've been kind of building the systems, but I think that is part of where that unity comes in of like, how can we make this easier on each other, both practically and financially?
One of the other areas that may be being explored or not is the idea of media rights, which peers across Division III, across all small college athletics have explored, discussed, and some of your peers have gone with a number of different partners. How do you think through what's right for the Northwest Conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough conversation, one that, like you said, all the D3 conferences are having right now, probably all conferences at every level, given the financial realities of higher ed, right? So if you have the opportunity to monetize something and or increase your value or increase the viewership, which then can help with enrollment, that's something that you have to take a look at. So I think it's one of those important conversations, especially at the AD president level, but also recognizing what is the impact going to be on recruitment as well as your sports information or facilities staff that are going to have to do that, and balancing all of those things. And I think those are conversations, like I said, all of Division III conferences are having, and where it falls out is going to be a little bit different. So we have also had those conversations. We'll see where it falls out. But I also see media rights as a really exciting thing, an opportunity in the future. I know, where we are in the world of college athletics, there's uncertainty around, the governance model going forward, the funding model going forward. Just in conference meetings, everyone now all of a sudden knows the exact year that the renegotiation is happening for the contract with basketball, right? So everyone's like 2032. You're like, okay, so everyone's now tracking on these dates, right? I think that's new. So even just being aware of if that D3 funding or the NCAA funding changes drastically, like I see media rights as an opportunity for Division III to even potentially come together. There's be huge bargaining power if you had all of D3 in one space, right? We're the largest division, broad-based sports sponsorship. So I can see that as a plan B, plan C, plan D, whatever it may be. If the funding model to the NCAA changes drastically and we needed to leverage our division-wide media rights to help fund championships or fund the division, I think those are opportunities in the future that we just, need to keep considering and exploring. It's not the right answer now, but having those as backup plans is something I think, at least for us, our presidents are expecting us to be thinking through. And honestly, for the health of the division and our positions, we need to be thinking through.
I'll ask you both this last question. Abby, as you head into the next academic year, 2025-26, what are you most excited about for the Northwest Conference?
I think I'm most excited to see how our athletic directors and our senior women administrators will continue to develop together and kind of identify these bigger processes. I think Shana and I both tend to be kind of bigger picture thinkers. So being able to look at things from that perspective and really have some of those big conversations is a really, really great opportunity for that group. And I think sometimes challenges them to look at things a little bit differently than maybe they have in the past. And that's the most enjoyable part of my job. So I would say that is kind of what I'm looking most forward to, is kind of now that we have some of these processes in place, being able to implement those and continue having bigger conversations.
Jen?
Yeah, kind of living out some of the things we've put in place will be exciting. From my perspective, doing something the second time and not having everything be brand new is exciting. Being able to work with Abby is also really exciting to me. She is a rock star. One of the, I've told her this, I told the presidents this, one of the reasons I took the job, and she's not allowed to leave. So being able to continue to work with her, think through things with her, we have a really collaborative relationship in that space. It's hierarchical by title and naturally, but we share everything, and she helps me think through things. As a two-person office, I think for me, I need that. So I'm excited to continue to do that, problem solve, and honestly just kind of keep seeing what's next, right? It's a week ago, we were in a place where the House settlement hadn't happened yet. So now, in a week, who knows where we'll be. So continuing to see where we are, react, and kind of attempt to plan going forward, I think is the fun part for me.
Excellent. Well, Shana, Abby, thank you both for joining me today here at NACDA.
Thank you. We appreciate you.